Praise be to Jesus. Hi again, everyone. I wanted to share my thoughts with you about something in the news update that I just did. The last story I brought you was the Pope doubling down on this idea that the virus is the earth telling us that we need to take care of the environment. And of course, he's about the only one who's speaking like this. I mean, there may be some others, but um, yeah, I think some in the Vatican are, well, the modernists in the Vatican are reinforcing this kind of concept. And after I posted the video, within like 3 minutes, it occurred to me. Now I was talking about, maybe he had a split personality or something, but once I really got to thinking about it, it occurred to me, um, really what I think is behind all this. And that is that ever since I've been following the Pope, I can't remember even one time when he's talked about God's justice. Now I'm not saying he hasn't spoken about God's justice. I'm just saying, I don't remember one time. And if he ever has, it's something very, very rare. And I don't think it's been anything recent at all. He may have done this back in 2013 or something, when he first got there. But, um, I just don't remember any time. And I've been following him since the beginning. Um, So, why is this? Why doesn't the Pope speak about God's justice? Well, he's always speaking about God's mercy, that's for sure. Um, well, I think the simple answer is that he doesn't want to speak about God's justice because people will start saying to themselves, uh-oh, there's something wrong here. There's something wrong in the Vatican. There's something wrong with what the Pope's doing. I think most people would think that. Now, there's a few of us a small majority of us, who would associate what's going on now. First of all, that it's just the beginning, that the world will never, ever be the same. In other words, there might be a resurgence of this coronavirus. There may be other viruses. Um, And this is exactly what Jesus is telling the prophets in the world today. Now, there have always been prophets in the world, and God sends his prophets for a couple of different reasons. The first reason is that when he determines that his children have strayed too far from him and they don't respond to him calling them back to him, after a while, he will send us a chastisement, either will it or allow it. So there'll be a chastisement. And, this is to get people to think about, what exactly is going on. The other reason is that God is telling us that if we don't return to him, this is what will happen. Now, this is what our mother said at Fatima, that if we don't return to God, that we will receive that Russia will spread its errors, and of course the communism is the communism is in line with the modernist thinking, so that's really overtaken the world. Um, and that there would be another a bigger, more serious war, which was World War II. So God not only tells us that you guys have gone too far, return to me, And if you don't, and then if you're not going to respond, this is what's going to happen. All right, so I know of messages that are 20 years old, and before then, um, Father Gobi, there was Father Gobi in the 90s, I think, or in the late 80s. Padre Pio said things. Um, Archbishop Fulton Sheen said things. Um, and, we were told by Our Lady of Good Success all the way back in 1610 or 20, whatever it was, um, that shortly after the middle of the 19th century, uh, you know, um, that the smoke of Satan would enter the church. So, shortly after the middle of the 1900s was Vatican II. So, but, getting back to the Pope, the Pope, if he is who I think he is, and many of you think he is, maybe not all of you, but there are many people who think that he's the false prophet in the book of Revelation, and that he's setting things up for the Antichrist, who is a secular person who hasn't made their appearance yet. But the Antichrist is going to appear at some point in time if we're correct, if prophecy is correct. Really, not it's not a personal opinion based on nothing. It's based on prophecy, and a lot of it. There's a lot of prophecy that speaks about the Antichrist. So, the bottom line here is that the Pope, if he is who we think he is, cannot afford to associate God's justice with the coronavirus, because people are going to start going, oh, there's something wrong in the church. The Pope's doing something wrong. He just can't have that. So I believe this is the real reason, the underlying reason why he doesn't, talk about God's justice. He just can't have it associated with his papacy and what his agenda is, which we know it's the New World Order, it's the one world religion, it's the one government, um, it's um, the control of the world in the hands of the few. Um, And for those of you that don't believe that you think that this is going to pass, I mean, I hope it does. Um, in fact, I really hope it doesn't. I don't know why I'm saying I hope it does, because I really hope it does not, because the world has gone way too far here. Homosexual marriages, and two men married to each other can adopt a child. um, all the immorality, the pornography, women's fashions, if you can call them that, which is basically skin tight clothes around in this neighborhood. Um, and our gluttony for money. Everybody's out to make as much money as they can. They don't care anything about the poverty in the third world, or very few people do. Abortion, I mean, there's, a whole list of things. Um, I do believe it's the end times. And, for those of you that don't believe that hold out the belief based on some hope that things will go back to normal. Um, I really hope they don't, because the world is going downhill terribly fast. And, Jesus has told his prophets in the world today, that humanity is going to destroy itself if he doesn't intervene. And the big intervention is something called the warning, um, which I'm not going to get into that. That's a whole nother thing. But, for those of you there might be a couple of you who have never heard of the warning. You ought to Google it and learn something about it, just so that you don't have to Google it and read about it, and you're not forced to believe that it's going to happen. You just want to be aware of what the thinking is among those who believe that this is the tribulation. The tribulation has been going on for quite some time, but now the messages are saying, that's it. All this is going to come to an end, and it's going to be one chastisement after another. Some will come from my direct will, others will come from the evil one, which is Satan, and I will allow it. So, but that's really not what's important, to be able to separate out one from the other. Um, they're all being allowed by God to call us back, and God is hoping, although He knows that we're not going to respond until things get really bad. I mean, people are going to be dropping dead in the streets. People are going to be walking around with boils all over them. And that's what this prayer is about. This is your prayer of protection from those times where, if you're in the world and you see these things, God will keep you safe from getting these. You will be here at this time um, when all this comes about, only to do one thing, and that's to evangelize, to write and print up flyers that you can hand out with an explanation. I mean, more than a flyer, you could write several pages for people who know nothing. They're thinking, like, what's going on? And, this is what's going on in the world. This is what's going on, and it has to do totally with God and the second coming of Jesus Christ. So, it's just, the light bulb went off, and it's like Pope Francis and God's justice. He doesn't want anything to do with God's justice. He never wants to mention God's justice. Guys like Parolin, Cardinal Parolin, and others, all the modernists, Mick Elroy, Supich, um, Cardinal Dolan. I mean, there's all kinds of. These guys never talk about God's justice. It's always, if they're going to speak, they're going to speak about God's mercy. And, when you run across a priest or a bishop or a cardinal, and he's talking about God's justice, then I think that that's probably a good guy. That's a traditional priest. Because God is both, mercy. His mercy comes first. If you don't respond, you get His justice. And that's biblical, and that's not anything that can be changed, regardless of what Pope Francis wants to do. Um, so I think these thoughts of mine, some of them will be helpful. Just Pope Francis wants nothing to do with associating himself with God's justice. Okay, that's it for this video, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye.